So, another topic that I think is extremely important is dealing with the Department of Education and the wasting of our tax dollars, not educating our children, definitely not up to the standards of 20, 30, 40 years ago, and probably most likely focusing on a lot of illegal immigration issues that the schools have to deal with when they bring in these students that don't even speak the native language. Those are a bunch of issues and underlying problems. But like everything else that the DOGE is dealing with, it's a lot of crazy amounts of spending that probably goes to nothing. I mean, who knows, right? Instead of charging for pencils 10 cents, they're probably charging $10. Who knows once we figure it out? But the DOGE itself has found that the Department of Education has spent $82 billion in the last year. I mean, I don't know what they're spending it on because it doesn't seem like the youth is getting good quality education, especially after we just dealt with the pandemic and the terrible numbers of, socialization issues that the kids have to deal with. You know what's interesting that the DOGE is finding is that a lot of the data on our educational research of what's happening, like what the students can comprehend, things like SAT tests. And I know people have issues with those, but just comprehensive skills, critical thinking skills of children and young youth has drastically fallen to levels that we haven't seen since the 90s. So the DOGE wants to do a lot of spending cuts. It wants to focus on programs specifically like DEI that it could cut. It wants to reduce and dismantle the department a bit. Just people that aren't functioning for the progression of the Department of Education / those jobs. I mean, again, touchy subject, but when you're focusing on, as the Department of Education, of confusing and socializing children into just concentrating on what their sexuality and gender and the issues they might have from that, outside of creating a fundamental layer for them to be able to critically think about their place in the world, their place in our society, and being able to comprehend what's going on with themselves emotionally and physically, is a terrible, terrible misdeed that the Department of Education has been doing to our children. Some of the specific issues with regards to education that the DOGE has found is reading scores for both 4th and 8th graders have hit historic lows, with only 67% of 8th graders and 60% of 4th graders meeting or exceeding basic reading skills in 2024. That's the lowest testing score since 1992. With regards to math scores, we also see incredible declines, with 8th graders experiencing a 9-point drop since 2020, reaching the lowest point since 1990. 4th graders saw a slight increase in 2024, but are still below pre-pandemic levels. I mean, obviously the impact of the pandemic is hard to quantify, but it is noticeable that it caused issues. And again, the overreaction and whatever other sort of deep state or socializational experiment was going on with keeping these kids out of schools has caused terrible damage. Other issues that the DOGE found that's really affecting children and that the Department of Education is not addressing is children not showing up to school. Increased absenteeism post-pandemic has correlated with lower test scores, with students who have missed more school days scoring significantly lower in both subjects. Now that we have seen that the media is going full force against Elon Musk, just as they have been Donald Trump, they are really criticizing what the DOGE is doing. And again, I'm not here to defend anybody. I don't know these people on a personal level. And could I ever really? Most likely not. I don't run in their circles, nor did I grow up with them. But the fact of the matter is, at some point, somebody should have been addressing all of these issues that all of a sudden somebody has to deal with within the span of 2 months now, or going on 2 months? It's ridiculous that so many people fight this. It's ridiculous to think that people are okay with the IRS hiring how many tens of thousands of IRS workers to audit us? But they freak out when we want to audit the federal government and figure out where is all this money going to. Do you ever look at the state of your streets? Do you ever look at the state of your infrastructure? What your children have to deal with, like our bullying programs or anything that you value, and think we're falling short? Because I do. I don't understand why we invest into all these other countries when we don't even have a set foundation for ourselves. If people just want to talk about the inequality based on, social, financial sectors of where people live within a city, Why is there that kind of discrepancy with regards to infrastructure for different people of different economic spheres? When we're sending money, billions of dollars, to other communities in other parts of the world. We have to focus on ourselves, and that's the issue. That's what everybody has to understand. We need to focus on what's going on here. And how do we do that? We address our problems. We address where people are making tons of money, tons of career politicians making crazy money, making terrible decisions. And maybe they're not terrible decisions. Maybe they're conscious decisions at ripping us off and making their pockets full. I never understand it, right? Like everybody always just hates somebody like Trump that wants to come in and redo everything. And instead they should be focusing on people like, let's say, our California governor that has done nothing, that has some sort of doing in what we just dealt with the fires that happened here. I'm sure not everybody could deal with everything, right? There's climate issues, there's specific issues in those areas, wind direction, everything. But our infrastructure is incredibly lacking, and that's why we're having these disasters. We should be prepared. There's a lot that people can be prepared for, and that's why we need better leaders. And again, the only way we address that is with dealing with our foundation. We need to figure out what's going from the ground up. And I get it. Everybody hates it. We're all going to hurt. We're already hurting. I mean, look what we're paying for eggs. People are fighting over eggs like during the pandemic when they were fighting over toilet paper. But something has to happen. Unfortunately, right now it's going to be Elon Musk and Donald Trump. I wish it was, sure, it would have been great if it was somebody else 20, 30 years ago, but it's not. But also, it's weird, isn't it, that somebody like Donald Trump comes in and within a month there's so many changes that so many different government employees are freaking out about, but haven't addressed for how long? How long have they been in these positions and they haven't addressed anything to make it even a little bit better? So we have to go full on crazy in the other direction? Something needs to be done. And I hope all of you can lend to these conversations and figure out which ideas should rise to the top.